Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining the call related to the Market Settlement Timeline Initiative. My name is Christina Osborne from Stakeholder Affairs. I'll be facilitating the webinar. Also in the room, we have Heather Kelly, James Lynn, who will actually be our presenter today, and Jeremy Malekos, and Denise Walsh, and also Steve Castanelli. So we did post the draft final proposal on September 23rd. The objective of this call is to review that proposal. We do have some responses to some feedback that we received on the revised straw proposal, so we're also going to talk through that. So the presentation that we're going to be reviewing today was posted this morning. It's out on the initiative webpage with the paper, and we also published a sample payment calendar, so that's located out on the initiative webpage as well. We're going to be recording the meeting today and making that recording available after we receive it from AT&T, which usually takes a couple of days, so I would look for that by the end of this week. So we are in the draft final proposal in the stakeholder process. The next step is to go to the EIM governing body in October and then go to the ISO board for decision on our proposal in November. So with that, I will hand it over to James.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to go over the draft final proposal for the Settlement Timeline Initiative. First thing I'd like to do is revisit what was the initiative's objectives and scopes. The first part of this initiative was trying to reduce market participants' financial exposure by increasing the accuracy and the quality and timeliness of our initial settlement statement. We also want to allow sufficient time to resolve disputes and provide a more accurate overall settlement statements in a shorter time horizon, and then extend the flexibility in publishing settlement statements and weekly invoices. Now, based upon the revised straw proposal, we had several different feedback for our stakeholders. The first feedback that we received was more related to the elapsed time between the last required statement and the first optional statements. In response to this feedback, we have made an adjustment to the settlement timeline to move the first optional statement from T plus 12 months to a T plus 11 months. And later on in the slides, I will show you why we moved it to a T plus 11 months. We also got requested for additional clarification on optional versus required statements and clarification on the charge code release cycle. We have provided these clarifications within the draft final proposal. I will not be addressing them in this presentation. There was concerns over the impacts of the proposal on the estimated aggregated liability, the aggregated credit limit, and basically overall financial security requirements. The ISO understands our participants' concerns, and we have provided some analysis based upon a 3-month period in 2018. We also did a spot check on 2 other dates, one in 2018 during the summer months, one of those really hot days in the summer months, and then a hot day in 2019. We'll go over the analysis later on this proposal. There was a request for the ISO to consider developing an API or application programming interface for the settlement payment calendar. This particular request is outside the scope of this initiative, but we will include it in potentially future initiatives. So we have taken that back as an option or an item for us to look at. There was expressed concerns that the dispute threshold was not justified. Based upon our participants' comments, we have decided to remove the dispute threshold at this time. We look to potentially revisit it in some future timeline or initiative, but at this time we will not going forward with this part of the proposal. There also is a request for the ISO to consider market participants' level of efforts for implementation. We will address all the implementation timelines and level of efforts during the implementation process or release planning meetings. During these things, we'll discuss what is the timeline for implementing this, what are the hurdles, what are everything that we need to discuss in coming up with a timeline for implementing this initiative. Is there any questions regarding what I've covered so far?
So if you do have a question, you can raise your hand by pressing #2, and please start by introducing yourself. So we'll wait a couple of minutes or a minute to see if anybody enters the queue. No questions, Lauren?
No questions at this time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, now I want to go over what was the overall where we landed on the draft final proposal. One, we decided to modify our settlement timeline. The proposal is to realign, consolidate, and extend the required settlement timeline within the 70 business days after a trade date. We realign and shorten the optional settlement timeline beyond the 70 business days after the trade date. Extend flexibility in the publication of settlement statements and weekly invoicing. Now, as we go through, this is the current, or this is what we're proposing the settlement timeline to be. We will do an initial statement at T+9B. This will allow us to take into consideration any market price corrections for T+3B and T+5B. We also are giving the opportunity for our participants to provide their meter data at T+7B. After the T+9B initial statement, which is now disputable, you have 22 business days to review and dispute anything on this statement. We are now then giving ourselves enough time to resolve these disputes and having the last required settlement statement for T+70B. With the T+70B, we're going to extend our meter submission timeline from 48B to 52B. This gives you a chance to submit updated meter data for the last required settlement statement. And like all of our settlement statements, this one also is going to have a dispute timeline of 22B. But then we go into the optional statements. The optional statements, we made a modification. The first initial optional statement used to be T+12 month. We've now moved it to T+11 month. And then we have two other optional statements after that of T+21 month and T+24 month. Now, how we're aligning these, the alignment of T+70B and T+11 month settlement statements was to ensure that the participants had ample amount of time to review their final required settlement statement on T+70B, submit disputes, and then allow us the opportunity to do a dispute determination, which is at 31B. And that allows us a 145-day quarter-release lead time in order to resolve any system-related issues in order to make the T+11 month optional statement. This 145 days, we believe, is an ample amount of time to give us the opportunity to resolve more disputes by the T+11 month and not have to use the T+21 month and T+24 month. So in other words, we're giving you a higher quality statements in a shorter period of time. Now, given this, I'm going to open it up for any questions.
So again, if there is a question, you can enter the queue by pressing #2. We're going to take a quick offline. Hold on. Okay, we're back. So Lauren, let me know if anybody's in the question queue.
We do have a caller in queue.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
Hey, this is Susan Hill from Portland General. I had some questions in my comments to the revised stakeholder about the meter data submission timeline, why that was moved the way it was moved, what the rationale is behind it, because it's a little confusing to me that we're accelerating one of the meter timelines but extending the other, and it feels to me a little arbitrary, so I just wanted to understand how you came up with the 7 and the 52 versus the 8 and the 48.
Okay. The 7B, for the initial statement, this was actually, we got this from the stakeholders in the initial comments for the straw proposal. We had requests coming from all the participants ranging from 6B to 8B, I believe, and we landed on 7B as being an optimal opportunity for us to be able to issue an initial statement in a 9B within the T3 and T12 statements. So we now have a higher quality statement on 9B. Now on the T52B meter submission, that one we originally looked at extending it out to even further, just to give our participants ample amount of time to ensure that accurate meter data was submitted. We looked at some of the submissions of meter data where we had to re-execute or reconsume it. It was after the 48B, and so what we determined was 4 business days was covered those periods of time where we actually had to re-execute some of our processes in order to consume updated meter data in order to make the first or the last required statement. So we tried to align those a little bit to ensure that we have enough participants enough time to submit meter data, and we have enough time to review it and then issue the second recalculation statement. Does that answer your question?
Oh, am I still open? Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it did. I have a second question as well if you don't have anybody in the queue.
Well, you're in the queue, so go ahead.
Okay. So we were one of the stakeholders that advocated sliding the 12 months sooner. And can you talk a little bit more about why you ended on 11 months? I'm looking at your slide, the 145-day quarterly release lead time, why that comes into play, why that it precludes a 10-month statement. We advocated for a 10-month in our position, and so I'm trying to understand how you ended up with 11 as a compromise and where the critical points were.
Okay. So if we look at the slide, and we're looking at trade date 1/1/2019, if I did a 10-month statement, so I look at my quarter releases. One of our major releases comes in October and November of each year. So if I have the January 1st trade date, and based upon disputes related to that trade date, I have to do a quarter release, there is a very good chance, the timeline is so tight that if I did T plus 10 months, that I potentially am going to miss that trade date, which then would automatically push a resettlement to T plus 21 month. So we decided that the T plus 11 month gives us a 30-day window to ensure that we align any resolutions due to disputes to make it within that quarterly release, plus if for any reason that quarterly release has to slide a little bit due to the fall initiatives, we now are able to ensure that that resolution makes it in order to make the T plus 11 month. So we try to balance the quarterly releases and the dispute timeline in order to ensure that we get everything on the first optional statement.
So let me repeat back what I think I heard because I want to make sure I understand it. So what you're suggesting is that there are disputes that result in a required quarterly release to address?
Yes, we do have some disputes that are either systematically or system-related or configuration-related. So when I have them configuration-related, I'm going to include it into the quarterly release. And so we're going to follow the quarterly release cycle. So in this particular example, if I had a dispute related to the January 1st and I follow the quarterly release cycle, it's going to be my fall release. And so if I did a fall release that was intended for 10/1, there's a very good chance that this 6 may not make it in time, whereas if I have it for 11/1, we'll ensure that it makes it in time.
So is this happening, I'm just, frequency-wise, is this a substantial problem? I'm just trying to understand if this is something that the CAISO is experienced enough times to go, yeah, no, this is a insurance policy or a mechanism that we need to continue to preserve because of the frequency it's happening. I'm trying to get a barometer check for, is this something that actually has been utilized quite a bit?
So, hi, this is Heather Kelly. So I think what James is saying is that if we ran a T10 statement, we would run that statement before the fix was put into production for our fall release. So we would run the statement, but the software fix that you're looking for to resolve your dispute actually wouldn't be in production yet, because we only put software fixes in production on a quarterly cycle.
Yep. So to go on top of that is today we are having some disputes identified on the T55 statement that the resolution, because of the timeline of 22 business days to tell us about it, and then the additional days for us to do the determination, that we have missed the 9-month statement and had to carry it over into an 18-month statement. Over the several years now, that's been one of the complaints from our participants, that we're not resolving them soon enough, and we're having to push it to T plus 18 months. So we're trying to ensure that we now resolve these by the 11 months. We don't have to push it out farther. So it does happen today.
Okay, thank you for that. So this settlement timeline is basically designed to address meter data submissions that were coming in after 48 days, and then to address some dispute configuration resolutions that require a quarterly release. Is that correct?
That's part of, yes. That's two aspects of this, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
All right, thank you.
Is there anybody else in the queue, Lauren?
We have 2 more callers in queue at this time. Caller, go ahead.
Hey, James, this is Josh Arnold over at PG&E. Real quick, first off, I want to say that we actually support the change to the 11 months. I think the 1 month earlier will help, especially from a contractual standpoint for us. And we are indeed one of the participants who have been concerned by the delays from the 9 months to the 18 months because of, quarterly release processes. So we think this is really good. One clarification I wanted to get, though, just now in your response, you're saying that a January 1st statement, an 11 month would be published, you said, on November 1st. I would have thought that a January 1st would be December 1st, since 1 plus 11 is 12.
It's depending on the calendar. It could be anywhere 11 and 12.
Right. Well, so 11 months, though, from January 1st will be roughly December 1st. So it sounds like in James's earlier description, he was a month early.
And maybe my description was off. I apologize for that.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. So it would be roughly on or around the beginning of December.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to clarify that.
Great, thanks. Next question.
Hey, James, this is Susie Niederkorn with MA Energy. So what is the 31 business date? Is that the dispute determination ends? What is that date? The 9 days after 20?
So once we receive a dispute, the ISO has a certain number of days which we are required to make a determination on that dispute and let participants know. If it is something that is very complex and that requires additional time, we will let you know as well. But the tariff has a specific timeline where we're supposed to let participants know where we're on the status of that dispute, whether it's accepted, denied, continued, placeholder, rejected. So that's what that is referencing.
So this only apply to the T70 business day, or does this apply to all the due dates?
It applies to every dispute. So for now with the T plus 9B, and we have the 22 business day dispute timeline, we also have a 31 business day dispute determination line. Same thing occurs with the 11-month, 21-month. So, yeah, it is tied to the overall dispute timelines.
Is this new, or it has been, going on?
This has been there since we've moved to dispute timelines.
Oh, thank you.
It's been there for a long time.
Oh, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
At this time, we have no other callers in queue.
Cool. Thank you, everybody. Now, I'm going to go over, we did some analysis based upon stakeholders' input, both on the initial straw proposal as well as the revised, looking at the impact on the estimated aggregated liability. What we did is we asked our finance team to look at a 3-month window in 2018 and help us calculate what would have been the estimated liability level for each participant for every day through that period, as well as inform us what the aggregated credit limit was as well. So in order to do a comparison, instead of doing a day by day, I looked at the average estimated aggregated liability in relationship to the maximum credit limit that was posted during that 3-month period. So what we determined was that under very few circumstances where we actually increased the point where we're near the aggregated credit limit, but we didn't exceed it at all. For most people, there wasn't very much fluctuation in the overall impact of the movement of the statements from T plus 3B to T plus 9B. We also looked at the aggregated credit limit. What was the increase of the utilization of that credit limit? And that goes into what we were referring to was, even though we acknowledged that going from a T plus 3B to a T plus 9B, we are going to increase your estimated aggregated liability. The big question is how much of that liability is going to be increased use of credit limit. What we saw is that over this 3-month period, and in alignment with the other 2 spot days, we had a maximum increase of a credit limit of 32%, while the maximum decrease of the credit limit was actually 24%. So depending upon your daily statements, it actually has a bigger impact on your overall estimated aggregated liability. For some participants, it actually increased their utilization. For other participants, it actually benefited them by reducing their credit utilization. Now, if you have any questions.
Sure. Do you have any questions in the queue, Lauren?
At this time, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Okay, and then the last part of the proposal was to extend the flexibility in the publishing of settlement statement and weekly invoices. We are going to provide some clarifying tariff provisions regarding the flexibility in publishing settlement statements and weekly invoices. Invoices will be considered timely if published by 5 a.m. on the next day, and Thursday in this particular case. For weekly invoices published after 5 a.m. on that Thursday, the invoice due dates will be adjusted to 4 business days from that invoice date. Now, we had participants who had some concerns with giving us this flexibility, and what we propose to do is provide adequate and timely information to all the participants of the reason for the expected delay and what the impact would be.
Any questions?
At this time, there are no callers in the queue.
Okay. Well, looks like we may be ending this call relatively quickly because we're at the end. In summary, we're going to modify the settlement timeline to realign and consolidate and extend the required settlement statement timeline within 70 business days after the trade date, and to realign and shorten the optimal settlement timeline beyond 70 business days after the trade date. We also are going to extend the flexibility in publishing settlement statements and weekly invoices. We believe the benefits of this is that we will see more accurate initial statements because we'll be using pulled meter data as well as SE meter data that, by the T+7B. Your day ahead and real-time price corrections will also be reflected in the initial statement. And after the fact corrections such as exceptional dispatch will be included in the initial settlement statement as well. This also increases participants' ability to settle with their third-party participants sooner. The first recalculation statement will be more accurate, in essence, because ISO and market participants will have more time to resolve the disputes and will provide an extra 2 weeks for dispute resolution. Last part of the benefits is it will improve the clarity of participants' financial position, and it will also save in some of the processing and data storage of reducing resettlement frequency. In other words, we're reducing the number of statements, we'll reduce the number of data storage requirements for participants as well as ISO.
So are there any questions before we go over the governing body classification and next steps?
We have one caller in the queue.
Okay. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, this is Caroline Spaces. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hi, Caroline.
Hi. I was muted before, so that's why my hand wasn't raising. I just have a couple questions. One is the T+11 months, you're calling it an optional, but since frequently the SQMD that's submitted at 52 changes from the T+7, goes like from estimated to an actual, wouldn't that make the T+11 more of a required recalc rather than an optional?
No, because, well, the reason why we don't consider it a recalc because that should have been captured in the T+70B's recalculation statement. So we tried to align it so that when you do the meter data submission of T+52B, we have 18 business days before it is captured in the T+70B recalculation statement. Only if there was need for additional meters. Go ahead, Caroline, sorry.
Okay, so I think I'm getting it now. So there's just going to be an initial and one recalc and then the 3 optionals.
Correct. If we're able to get it done right, we'll have initial and recalc, and we won't need to use the optionals.
I see. Okay. And then the other thing I didn't quite catch at the beginning, did you mention an implementation date range at this point, or is it still unknown?
It is. Go ahead, let Heather speak.
So we have to put something down on our calendar, and so right now we're putting fall of 2020 down on the calendar. But we are open to getting feedback from stakeholders on the level of effort that it will take on their end to make these system changes, and we'll be soliciting that feedback through the release planning process, and then we can, modify dates as needed.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Any other questions, Lauren?
At this time, there are no other callers in the queue.
All right. Okay, so this initiative is categorized as for advisory role for the EIM governing body. It's because it generally is applicable to the entire real-time market and not just the day-ahead market, and not driven primarily by energy imbalance market, which makes it advisory. Therefore, we are asking for stakeholders to provide written feedback on the proposal as well as the discussion today. And then the plan is to go to the EIM governing body, again, just to present this to them. And then we're going to go to the ISO Board of Governors November 13th and 14th for decision. So you can send your comments to the initiative comments at KISO.com mailbox, which is linked below. And we could actually, I think last time we put out a comments template, so I'll go ahead and provide that. I'll email that. Once I have that posted, I'll email a link to all of you so you can submit your comments using the template. So any other questions before we conclude the call today? All right.
We have a caller in queue.
Okay, great. Thank you. Caller, go ahead.
Hi, this is Chris Van Vactor with Southern California Edison. I just wanted to make a quick note. Your implementation team and the release user group call did have this initiative in fall 2021. So I don't know how it got there, but that's a little later than 2020, as you noted earlier.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll touch base with them and sort that out. But thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yep.
All right. At this time, we have no other callers in the queue.
All right.
Well, I thank everybody for joining us today, and we'll give you some time back to enjoy the rest of your workday.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lauren.